Hey guys, welcome back to Raise RC. Just thought I'd throw together a nice little video for the end of the year here. So this is going to be the 2017 four-wheel drive shootout. I've got three kits in front of us: the TLR 224 2.0, the Team Associated B64D, and the brand new Tekno EB410. So these are basically the three American four-wheel drive buggies on the market. There's European and Japanese brands obviously, but I don't own any of those. So what we're going to do is basically rate these three vehicles from first to third in a bunch of different categories. And so I think they're also very good representation of the different kits that are on the market. The TLR is kind of the last of the belt drives. The Yokomo switching over to shaft drive momentarily. I guess there's also the Schumacher, but for the most part, TLR is the most popular belt drive buggy still left on the market. Then you've got the B64D right there in the middle, and I think this kind of represents the new wave of four-wheel drive buggies. There's a lot of kits that kind of follow the same shaft drive model with the battery and motor in the back, the servo and ESC up front, shaft drive. So a lot of buggies like the X-Ray, the Hot Bodies, the Kyosho, they all kind of follow the same model. Even the brand new Yokomo that's coming out is very similar. And then on the right, you can see the Tekno EB410. I think this represents kind of the new kid on the block. They decided to go their own way, bring down a lot of 8th scale roots, I guess, down to their 10th scale stuff, and kind of come up with something totally different from the other guys. So I think these three actually represent a pretty good cross section of what's on the market today, and hopefully you'll enjoy this video. Now, some ground rules, some disclaimers. I purchased all these myself. I paid for them all with my own hard-earned money. Nothing was given to me, nothing free, no discounts, no sponsorships or anything like that. I bought them just because I wanted to own them, and I think they're cool buggies. The other thing I want to mention is I basically ran the same electronics and the same tires, same receiver, radio, batteries, ESC, like everything in these kits were pretty much matched apples to apples in terms of electronics and pretty much what you can get. I mean, even the actual tires and wheels that I was running on the Tekno fit the TLR, so I was switching back and forth between those two buggies with the exact same tires and wheels. So I've run slicks, I've run treaded tires, everything that you can normally run on an indoor clay track, I've run on these buggies. So with that out of the way, the other thing I want to mention is that this is all my own opinion, obviously. I'm sure there'll be people out there that completely disagree with me, don't like what I have to say, and that's fine. You know, that's my own opinion. You know, this is a free world, and you can state whatever you like. So this is all from my point of view. Now, obviously, your driving style, your local track, even the surface, the layout, setup will make a huge impact on how the buggies drive and perform. So for the most part, I'm running fairly close to kit setup with some tweaks that I thought made a big difference in getting them to drive the way I like them to drive. So I'm going to try to concentrate on these a little more on I think their natural tendencies and how their design makes them operate. So that's kind of some ground rules, I guess, before we start. So quick overview of these buggies. The TLR on the left is the oldest of the group. I figure maybe we'll just pop off these bodies real quick. So TLR 224 2.0, B64D here in the middle, and the Tekno EB410. If I can get this body off. It's a little tight in here. You're trying to fit all three buggies here in the same shot. But that's what you got underneath the hood. So on the left, you can see obviously the TLR is the belt drive version of the four-wheel drive buggies. Sort of transverse mounted motor, battery, EC, servo kind of in the middle there. And you know, kind of an older design based off the XX4 that's been around for like 20 years or so. In the middle, you have the Team Associated B64D, so fairly typical modern layout, carbon fiber shock towers, ESC and servo up front, and then basically battery and motor in the back. Shaft drive layout, very typical. A lot of designs out there follow this model, and I think this is the best-selling buggy probably in the world. So you know, makes for kind of a nice comparison and sample of this type of buggy. And then here on the right we have the Tekno EB410. You know, they definitely did a lot of things different from the other guys. They went with 13 millimeter bore shocks. They've got all the electronics up front, you know, basically servo upright, ESC here on the side, and then motor and battery up front, and then basically completely empty back section there. So very different design, sort of the first forward weight bias buggy I think that has become popular. So these are all American companies and generally are a little less expensive here in the United States than the European and Japanese versions of four-wheel drive buggies, so it makes it a little easier for me to own and operate. Now, I figured I'd kind of go through a bunch of different categories. I'm going to try to go through them fairly quick, so we're not making like a 30-minute video, but we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I also have videos, in-depth videos and reviews of each of these buggies on YouTube, so check out my channel. If you really want kind of a nuts and bolts deep dive into each of these buggies, I go through them a little more in those individual videos. So we're just going to go through these on overview basis. So first category I wanted to talk about is the build, and the build, you know, had various degrees of success. I think the TLR had the best build overall. There were really no errors in the manual. Everything fit and built nicely. There are no problems with any machining or manufacturing. Also, the body's pre-cut. All the parts come in bags. There's no parts trees. Stickers are pre-cut. Wings pre-cut. So just a really nice build overall. Although the design is fairly complex and a lot of things are sort of interlocking in the build and how it's laid out, the build was quite enjoyable overall and no real issues. Second place I'm going to rate basically the B64. My particular build had a little manufacturing problem with one of the caster blocks, and there were some kind of first run issues with like the divs and maybe not the easiest build, but overall nothing too difficult or complicated, so that comes in second place for me. And then last is going to be the Tekno EB410. It's a brand new kit. It's only been on the market a couple months now, and I got one of the I guess it was the second run of the kit. Basically the first set I guess Tower got them probably towards the end of the first run. So I got one of the first run kits. The shock caps were, kind of a problem. They really didn't screw on very well. The bleeder holes stripped. And so, that was kind of a major issue for me. So I'm going to rate that last. Hopefully they'll address that. I've actually updated them to aluminum shock caps, so that's not as much of an issue now. But that, comes in last in the build. Oh, and I did want to talk about the actual configuration of these kits real quick. For the most part, they're fairly stock. On the TLR 22.4 2.0, I basically have some aluminum parts for durability. So I've got the aluminum AB horn. I'm out of the rear shocks on the front of the arms, and I got like aluminum pulleys and stuff internally on the drivetrain, basically to help the belts wear a little bit longer, a little better engagement. So that's pretty stock. B64D also is very stock. Basically just have aluminum inserts in the rear hubs, and I think that's pretty much it. Honestly, it's very kit. The actual setup is basically the revised kit setup that they introduced probably a few months ago. The original kit set was not very good. There are a bunch of things I made, changes to the diff fluids and sort of ride height and stuff like that. I noticed actually the latest kit setup also uses fairly similar things. So that's what I've got going on the B64D. And then here in the Tekno EB410, I have the aluminum shock caps, I have the front sway bar set, and then basically this carbon fiber top plate, and then some spring changes, but nothing big there. So fairly stock. I basically probably spent about $50 or so on each kit, just putting in the improvements I thought were pretty much critical, I think, to running the kits and the ones I would recommend. But overall, fairly original setup. So nothing too crazy like titanium wise or carbon fiber wise or whatever. Fairly normal run-of-the-mill changes. So that was the build. Next thing I want to talk about is the design, and what comes in first for me is the B64D. Definitely the cleanest, most elegant design, very straightforward, easy to maintain, a lot of adjustments. Actually has the most adjustments of all these different kits. You can adjust axle height, you can adjust toe, track width, kick up, all those good things. So definitely I think it has the best design. You have center center slipper clutch or center diff options. The other ones, the TLR only comes in slipper, and the EB410 only comes with a center diff. So definitely the most tunable of the three. So overall, just a really nice design. You know, you kind of see why pretty much most of the manufacturers are kind of going to this layout and this basic general design. Second place for me is the EB410. Pretty good design also overall. You know, there are some nice touches they put in, like sort of the locked in shot cups. They've got, you know, wire holders. They've got basically mated or fixed shock standoffs that, you know, can't turn when you're loosening these nuts up front. So a lot of little details I think that make it pretty nice. But there are a few things design-wise I didn't quite like. You know, probably not as many adjustments as the B64D. Also, the center spur gear is integrated with the differential, so you got to pop off the cap basically of the center diff to change the spur gear. Kind of a pain. The electronics are super compact here in the front. Very difficult to wire. Well, not very difficult to wire, but definitely requires a lot of planning, a lot of careful soldering and sort of wire layout to get it, you know, sort of nice and clean for the electronics. But overall, nothing, you know, too horrendous. Still a pretty easy buggy overall to work on. Just maybe not as many adjustments as the B64D. And last place definitely has to be the TLR 224 2.0. Complex design, a lot of interlocking pieces. Spur gear is a pain in the butt to get to. Not, you know, probably has the fewest adjustments of all the kits. You know, really you only have rear anti-squat and kick up. You know, there's no pill system. You can't adjust the front kick up or anything like that. No adjustable axle heights. So yeah, fairly limited set of adjustments. Still kind of more of a dirt-oriented buggy, I'd say. So overall, design-wise, B64D, then the Tekno, then the TLR. Next category I want to talk about is durability, and I think this is important because the four-wheel drive buggies for sure are you know, known for being a little bit more fragile. They're complex, a lot of moving parts, generate a lot of corner speed, a lot of acceleration, and then, you know, there's nothing really protecting the wheels and the body, and the chassis and stuff like that. So open wheel design, obviously. So durability is always kind of the Achilles heel of four-wheel drive buggies. I think in first place, I'm going to rate the B64D. Now that may surprise you because I gave the B64D pretty low marks in my initial review, but I've actually updated to the newer arms. The front arms are kind of the main problem. I also added the aluminum rear inserts into the hubs. And since I've made those changes, really I have no issues with durability wise. It's actually proven to be a very tough, very durable buggy overall. I think it's also a little bit lighter than the other buggies, so that maybe translates into less, you know, sort of force equals mass times acceleration, so less impact when you actually run into stuff. But it seems to kind of have that right blend of flexibility and stiffness to be able to absorb hits. So overall, you know, I've actually now found the B64D to be fairly durable. Second place, I'm going to rate the Tekno EB410. Although Teknos in general are known to be fairly durable, especially in the 8th scale and short course side, I think there are a couple of little weaknesses in my particular kit, at least. The shock standoffs bend fairly easily. You know, the shock caps are terrible. You definitely want to go with aluminum ones. Some people have bent like turnbuckles and stuff. You know, nothing too major. The plastics definitely are quite tough, but you know, a little bit durability wise, you know, time will have to tell. It may prove to be more durable than the B64D, but at least in the last bunch of battery packs I've ran, I've definitely broken more things on the Tekno than the Team Associated. And then, so last place is going to be the TLR 224 2.0. I wouldn't consider it fragile by any means. I mean, it's definitely still a pretty solid buggy. Really, there's only one main issue that you'll want to watch out for, which is the front pivot block. It's made of plastic. It does break occasionally, but more importantly, it actually tends to wear out a bit, and you end up replacing them even when it's not broken. So, you know, I probably go through a pivot block once every, I don't know, 20 battery packs or something like that. You know, it's not an expensive part. It's like $10, but it's definitely something you'll want to stay on top of and have extras in your kit bag, pit bag, to change out every so often. So TLR 224 is third, Tekno second, and the B64D first. So that's durability. And the next category I want to talk about is value. And so the Tekno retails for $399, definitely the most expensive of the three. The TLR has actually dropped down to $349, which is the lowest of the three, and then the B64D is right there in the middle. So value-wise, I also am going to rank them in that order. So the TLR, I think, is the best value. It's the lowest price, but you also get a lot in the kit. You get a lot of aluminum, you know, the best shocks of the three. Well, I don't know about the best shocks, but definitely the most nicely manufactured shocks. All aluminum shocks, aluminum shock caps, machine delving pistons. Just a lot of nice little details. Everything's pre-cut. The parts are made in Taiwan instead of China. Stickers are pre-cut. It really needs nothing. I mean, well, actually, I did add aluminum rear hexes, so that's something else I would pretty much the only aftermarket part I think you need for the TLR. But it's got the lowest price. I think it's got the nicest manufacturing and really the nicest shocks, and you know, overall kind of the best package for value. Second place, I'm going to rate the B64D. A little bit more than TLR. You obviously get a lot of nice parts, carbon fiber shock towers, a lot of aluminum motor mount, aluminum ABCD blocks. But there's no wheels included in the kit. The TLR comes with wheels. The body's not pre-cut. The wings are really flimsy. The stickers aren't even pre-cut. So just kind of, I kind of feel like they threw in some blingy parts, but then they also took some shortcuts in certain areas. So with the slightly higher price, no wheels, I'm going to rate that second. And in last place and third is the EB410. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a good value. I mean, $399 is a really good price for a four-wheel drive buggy, and really nothing from Europe or Japan comes down that low. So still an excellent value, and $399 was kind of the lowest you could find a four-wheel drive buggy, you know, say 6 months ago. But a lot of plastic, you know, the turnbuckles and all the sort of metal parts are a little cheesy looking. You know, they're just kind of that black oxide finish. They're not nickel plated or chrome plated. Body's not pre-cut, wings not pre-cut. So yeah, just kind of overall, I think it loses out. There's no wheels, parts made in China. So value-wise overall, that's going to place third. Next category I want to talk about is support, and that basically refers to, you know, how many team drivers are out there that can help you, how easy it is to find parts, setup sheets, factory help, that kind of thing. Excuse me. And so Team Associated is definitely best in class in this category. While I think the online presence of TLR is a little better than Team Associated, just the fact that, you know, they're so widespread throughout the US at least. I mean, pretty much every track is going to have the most Associated, you know, kits over any other brand, I think, and probably parts as well. So it's easy to be an Associated driver. Definitely can get parts anywhere, tons of kits, a lot of, you know, help from other racers, other pros, that kind of thing. So Team Associated, I think, is number one in that category. TLR, I think, comes second. They have a very good online presence. Frankfurt does an amazing job on the forums, on Facebook. They've got unboxing videos, introduction videos, how-to videos. They've got a blog, you know, that they kind of update with tips and tricks. So they're actually very good in that category, but, you know, obviously not as widespread as Team Associated. It's a little bit harder to find setup sheets. There's not as many things being updated, I think, race-wise from all the races. So a little bit harder to be a TLR driver, I think, in terms of support. And then Tekno is going to come in third place. Definitely the smallest company, the newest company, definitely the underdog of the three. But I think they're doing a lot with what they can. You know, they have a few factory drivers. They're putting up how-to videos. They've got people on the forums. So they're doing the best they can, but, you know, they're a small company, and there's kind of no way getting around that. So that's it for support. We go Team Associated, TLR, and then Tekno. Next category is maintenance, and this is important because four-wheel drive buggies are definitely some of the most complex vehicles on the market. They're also quite small and generally quite cramped. So maintenance is in some cases very simple, in some cases not at all simple. We're going to go from third to first in reverse direction this time. The TLR by far is the most difficult to maintain. It's got belts that need to be replaced more often than shafts. The complexity of the design does not lend itself well to changing and fixing things. If you strip a spur gear, you know, it's going to be a pain in the butt to change that thing. That's really the area I think it struggles the most. Maintenance is fairly difficult. It's got all enclosed belts, And, you know, maybe that's kind of going back to its dirt roots, right? Where we're outdoors and loose, dusty tracks, you know, the enclosed belts help a lot. But today in modern, you know, carpet, AstroTurf, indoor clay, it's not quite as critical. Hopefully they'll address that in the next version of this buggy, but mains is definitely difficult. In second place is the Tekno, and the Tekno is actually fairly easy to work on for the most part, but there's only a couple areas I didn't quite like. I mean, obviously the very tight electronics makes it difficult to adjust things. And then the center diff with that spur gear is also a little bit annoying. So overall, while I think the Tekno has very good ease of maintenance on the buggy, it's just not quite as good as Team Associated. So the B64D is probably one of the easiest buggies you'll ever have to work on. The diffs come out with like 4 or 5 screws. Center diff is easily removable. The electronics have easy access to. There's tons of room to basically adjust things. So the B64D definitely takes the top step there in maintenance. All right, now we're going to get into the fun stuff, which is performance, right? We've kind of gotten all the basic stuff out of the way. And so let's talk about performance in a bunch of different categories. First of all, acceleration, braking, and well, let's just talk about acceleration first. So I think the TLR has the edge in acceleration. There's something about the belt drive system, and you know, I was thinking about this quite a bit and trying to figure out why does this thing accelerate so well. I think partly due to the slipper clutch, but also the belt drive system sort of has this gyroscopic effect, obviously pushing the front end kind of down, in addition to basically any rear weight transfer. So it just locks in really well to the ground. It just accelerates extremely well. When you land jumps, you know, you just need one wheel to touch down and you can yank the throttle. I mean, it just rips acceleration-wise. It's also extremely smooth with the belt system. Belt drive, I think, has an advantage over shaft drive in that case, just with how precise and smoothly the power gets applied and thrown down. And so the TLR, I think, is the best accelerating buggy. Second place, I'm actually going to give it to the Tekno. I think this front weight bias actually helps on acceleration. I know that sounds kind of weird, but with four-wheel drive buggies, you know, you have all 4 wheels basically helping the buggy drive forward, and you already have weight transfer going in the rear, and then with additional weight already there up front, all 4 wheels really seem to kind of help the thing accelerate. And it does drive a little bit different. I mean, it definitely feels like it pulls from the front a little more, but I think that helps with steering. I think that helps with acceleration. And so in second place, I'm going to rank the Tekno EB410. In a kind of a weird way, this and the TLR drive more similar than the Tekno and the B64D. So even though the layouts and everything else look more similar between these two, it's kind of weird how acceleration wise, at least the Tekno and the TLR are more similar. So that leaves the B64D, I guess, in third place. The rear weight distribution, I think it definitely makes it drive a little more like a 2-wheel drive buggy, which I think was one of the goals of Team Associated's design. But I'm not sure that's really a good thing with a 4-wheel drive buggy. I mean, you have all 4 wheels, you might as well try to get them to basically help you propel the buggy as much as possible. So that's third place. Now for braking, I think the TLR also seems to be the most stable. It also has a clicker adjustment if for some reason you want to drive more like a 2-wheel drive buggy. But I think between the slipper clutch, it's also the heaviest and kind of the most balanced weight distribution. It just seems very planted under braking, very stable. You know, kind of a joy to brake overall. Second place, I'm going to give it to the B64D. The rear weight bias also keeps the rear end quite planted under braking. Obviously, there's a lot of weight transfer, but with all that weight still there in the back, I think it's a little more stable. And then the Tekno is definitely not the most stable thing under braking. There's a lot of weight transfer. There's a lot of weight already in the front. The rear end tends to get quite light, and you know, I guess that's probably one of the reasons why people put weight there in the back, but under braking, I think it's the least stable and kind of the weakest in that area. Next thing I want to talk about is jumping and landing and flying. And I I think jumping wise and flying wise, the Team Associated actually excels in this area. It seems to jump the flattest, the lowest. There's no sort of forward weight nosedive or anything like that. It drives just very neutral, very enjoyable to jump in. I think it just jumps the best. The Tekno tends to nosedive a little bit, probably because of that extra weight up front. It also jumps fairly well, but a little bit higher, like, you know, kind of jumps up and down a little bit more than I think the B64D. So I'm going to rank that second in terms of jumping. And then the TLR definitely nosedives. I think, again, it's part of that gyroscopic effect of the belts. I don't really know why. I mean, the motor, everything is sort of spinning forward. And so when it jumps, it doesn't really like to rotate in the air much. You know, it's a little bit harder to whip, I guess, in the air. Not that I do a whole lot of whips. But if you jump off, you know, sort of at an angle off the off-ramp, it's not going to be able to like fix itself in the air all that well. So I think jumping and landing is probably the biggest weakness of the TLR 22.4 2.0. So jumping wise, I think I rank it third, and then landing wise, I think it's also the worst of the three. And I don't know if it's the slipper or what, but landing this thing off axis, you know, on one wheel is just a recipe for disaster, honestly. I mean, you definitely want to try to jump this thing straight and land it straight as much as possible, because if you're at an angle and sort of, you know, don't land it cleanly, it does have tendencies to sort of flip or crash or whatever. That's really the weakness of the TLR 22.4 2.0. In terms of landing, I'd rate the Team Associated second. It does chassis slap a bit, and you're going to have to play with shocks to kind of address that, run a little more ride height, that kind of thing. The shocks are probably the weakest of the three. The TLR has very smooth shocks, and the Tekno has very plush shocks. I mean, they're just very smooth and absorb impacts very well. But the Team Associated Buggy, it lands okay, but certainly not well. And then that's really one of the strongest points of the Tekno. I think it lands phenomenally. The 13mm bore shocks definitely work. You know, I did drill out the rear pistons to 2.0 millimeters, up from 1.7, I think, is stock. And then running a little bit thicker shock fluid as well, and it just lands awesome. I mean, definitely one of the highlights of the vehicle. So that's jumping and landing. Now let's move on to cornering. And so cornering, we're going to break up into three different categories: corner entry, sort of mid corner, and transitions, and then corner exit. So corner entry, the Tekno is the king. I mean, this thing steers like a beast. You can just dive into that corner, heavy on the brakes, whip the rear end around, whatever. I mean, it steers phenomenally. I mean, you may actually want to tone down the steering a little bit. It's the first buggy that I felt like maybe I wanted to remove a little expo on the steering. And I do think there's something weird about the steering. It seems to like have natural expo or something going on with the steering. It's not as linear as the other two. So it's kind of feels like it has sort of a expo curve to it in steering wise. So that's corner entry. I think the TLR probably ranks second under corner entry. It's quite stable, quite neutral. Still got a lot of good steering, no problems there. And the Team Associated is actually the only kit that I'm running a little toe out on. It just seems to need that a little bit more. And I think the rear weight bias hurts it a little bit in the cornering department. I mean, I feel like I need to run a little bit softer springs up front, a little toe out. I'm actually considering putting a little bit of weight under the steering rack just to balance it out a little bit. It's pretty funny because when you drive this kit, you're like, okay, you know, when I first got it, I was like, oh, this thing steers pretty well. And then I got the Tekno, and I'm like, oh man, the Tekno is amazing. And I've been actually trying to get the B64D to drive a little more like my Tekno because I just like the way the Tekno steers more. So I think of the three, the Team Associated is probably the weakest in the corner entry steering. Now mid corner, I'm gonna say, you know, they drive a little bit differently. The TLR is the most sort of neutral in the corner, and although it's actually not really neutral, it's a little more point and shoot than the other two, and I think it's because it doesn't have a center diff. These two actually are quite fluid mid-corner. The Tekno almost a little twitchy wise, in transitions is maybe not the best, but the Team Associated is actually quite solid mid-corner. So mid corner, you know, I'm going to rate probably the Team Associated as the best in like long sweeping curves. The TLR a little bit better in transitions, just because it's so stable. And flip-flopping left to right, it's just very precise. And then so the Tekno in transitions, it's really just not the greatest. And I think the expo effect or something, there's something odd about the way this thing kind of transitions left to right. But mid corner steering and sort of, you know, a single radius turn, it's actually quite well. So mid corner, it kind of depends on the type of corner. I think they're all have their pros and cons, but although the Tekno probably not as good in transitions, and that's kind of the strong point of the TLR. So the last category of performance and sort of cornering is how it gets out of the corner. I think the TLR is phenomenal in getting out of the corner, and this really has to do back to acceleration. It steers well. These two kits I think steer a little bit better exiting the corner, just because they either have a front weight distribution, or even though the TLR is not front weight, it's sort of more balanced with the motor, the servo, everything's kind of in the middle there, so it's not quite so rear weight biased. The Team Associated seems to push just a little bit. You know, like you do need a little bit of toe out, I think. So, you know, while I don't think corner exit is all that different between the three of them, that's how I'm going to rate them. So anyways, TLR, Tekno, and then the Associated. So overall, you know, talking about performance, they just drive all a bit different. I think the TLR is just kind of the most neutral, kind of the easiest to drive, a little more point and shooty, but maybe not quite as fluid cornering wise. The Team Associated, while it doesn't do anything particularly bad, it also doesn't do anything particularly well. You know, it's sort of middle of the road, I think, between the three of these. It just feels like a normal kit, all right? And then the Tekno is just like the steering monster of the three. It just rips steering wheels. You'll never not have enough steering with this kit, and for the most part, you'll be probably looking to dial out a little steering or make it a little more stable. So it's definitely easier to dial out steering than it is to gain steering. So you know, if you like steering, definitely the Tekno is the one you're going to go for. So that's pretty much it for my review. Wow, we are at 30 minutes, so we'll try to wrap this up real quick. Which buggy do I think is best? So a couple of little caveats. The Team Associated is the lightest of the three. It's probably about 20 to 30 grams lighter than the Tekno, kind of depending on how it's sort of packaged and stuff. TLR I think is the heaviest, so the Associated probably is a little better for 13.5 racing. It's the lightest and definitely has the most hop-ups. But of the three of these, I'm just gonna give you my opinion. The one buggy I think I would own over the other two is going to be the Tekno EB410. It's just got phenomenal performance. It's got pretty good durability. You know, it's not quite as probably good as the B64D, but still very good durability. The build was nice. It really has no weaknesses. It's just a very good buggy overall. And while I think there are some areas that the TLR actually drives a little better, the precision and just neutralness of the belt drive system I think is phenomenal. If you've never driven one of these, I highly recommend you try to get your hands on one, because it's just sublime in how this thing actually performs driving wise. But the Tekno, while it may not be as good as the TLR in some areas, it's actually better in other areas, right? The steering is ridiculous on this thing. The landing from jumps is ridiculous on this thing. It really has no weaknesses. And while the Team Associated, I think, also doesn't really have any weaknesses. I mean, one of its advantages is that it's the most tunable. So over time, it's just gotten better and better and better. And it's actually driving a lot better than it did even 6 months ago when I did my last review of this kit. So, well, I think the Team Associated has a lot of potential, and there's really nothing wrong with it. There's also nothing just amazing about the buggy. It just drives like a normal buggy. It's sort of harmless. You feel comfortable driving with it, but you never, you know, pull the trigger, drive the vehicle, and say, wow, this thing's amazing. And you do get that with the Tekno. You do get that with the TLR in some instances. So I think the Tekno performance-wise is just right up there with the TLR, if not better in some cases. You get the durability. You get the whole package, I think, with the Tekno. You don't have the support maybe as the other two guys. As long as you stock your own parts, I think you'll be just fine with the Tekno. So of the three, my pick for 2017 is the Tekno EB410. Second place, I'd probably take the TLR just because I think it just drives a little better than the Associated kit. Although if I were racing like 13.5, I'd probably take the Associated just because it's just a little bit better of a 13.5 racer. But overall, I think the TLR probably in all other cases is a little bit better. So anyways, that's it for the review. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this is a crazy long video, but you know, let me know your thoughts and throw it on a comment. Give me a like if you like the video, a dislike if you're not. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Anyways, that's it. 2017. We're wrapping it up. Four-wheel drive buggy review. My choice, Tekno EB410. All right, take care, guys, and look for more videos soon. Thanks. Bye.